Yes. So today's topic is low power CMOS logic circuit, right? So why this low power logic design has become so important? Because in modern life, the number of devices that we use that is powered by the battery, means the portable devices, that is increasing day by day, right? So all these portable device, as they are powered by the battery, you don't connect it all the time with the power, with the supply, with the supply voltage, mean with the main supply. So we need to limit the number of power, we limit the power consumption, right, for these devices, so that uh, with a within sufficient charge of the battery, your device can run for a significant amount of time. So there are two ways to think about it. One is the battery life or the power density of the battery. If you can really increase the power density of a battery, then that is also great. And that is what probably you have observed. Now, different research has been going on, different active research, I would say, that are going on the battery cells. Different battery cells has been evolving, which are more and more in terms of safety. Different research has been going on. So cells are coming with different organic, different organic batteries are coming, right? Or you already know the lithium ion batteries, right? Those things are already been there. But along with that, some other research has also be going on this, on this nanomembrane based batteries, where the capacitances, means the capacitance density would be really, really high. Right. So you can store a sufficient and significant amount of charges on those batteries. So one is that way. The other way is once you have fixed the battery, like the total charge stored in a battery, then if you can design your circuit such that your circuit will consume less amount of power, then obviously with this battery you can your device will last long, right? With a single charge, right? So for these different methodologies has been involved, like some of the methodologies starting from the device. So you design your device or the process or choose the process such that your devices, each single device will consume less power. That is one thing. And the other one is this algorithmic level, or type of there are different hierarchy while designing this CMOS VLSI circuit. So this is this algorithmic level is the type of higher level. So when you are not while considering this algorithmic level of design, you are not considering the transistor level anymore. You are considering from the gate level, maybe, or maybe little even higher than the gate level. Okay, so we'll discuss about both this device level, circuit level, as well as this algorithmic level, how we can design the circuit so that the power consumption of the circuit we can significantly we can the power consumption of a particular circuit we can significantly lower down. So as you can see, the switching power dissipation that we have already discussed, right, in while discussing this CMOS inverter and CMOS other gates. So this is one CMOS gate. So here is the PMOS network, or this pull up, right, pull up network, and this is this pull down network. So for this pull up network, there are different inputs. For the pull down network, there are similar. If there are n inputs, so here has to be also n number of inputs, right? And from here, the and as this would be the output, right? So here this is the V out, and with this V out it is driving some load capacitance, that is CL, right? Okay. Now here we have also discussed what are the different types of power consumptions in an this static CMOS circuit. So number one would be the dynamic power dissipation or the switching power dissipation, where during switching, right, we know that there will be a power dissipation when both the transistor would be on, right? And we have find out that switching power dissipation would be given by this CL, right, this load capacitance into this VDD square, right, into this VDD square into F is the frequency of this input, that is the, or if it is driven by the clock, then if it F would be the frequency of the clock. Along with that, we have introduced another term here, so that is we call this term alpha. Alpha is the activity factor or the node transition factor. So this is, I think we briefly have discussed, but what is this alpha? Maybe if the frequency, if this F is the frequency of the clock, then maybe some part of the circuit is not actually operating at the same frequency as the frequency as given by the clock. Okay, maybe it is running by some different frequency, right? So to accommodate that, or maybe for that is one way you can think of. Other way would be maybe it is operating at the same frequency of the clock, but it is not maybe operating at the all the time. Maybe some of the time it is operating and some of the time it is not operating. So to consider that, we have introduced this factor alpha, which is called the activity factor, because power is only been dissipated when you are charging this capacitor, right? If suppose in if you have already charged this capacitor and next step you are not charging this capacitor, then in the next step you are actually not dissipating any power, right? So this alpha has been introduced to take care of all this part. So this alpha is the activity factor or the node transition factor, right? And the CL, remember, CL is the load capacitance, this one, right? Okay, but that is fine, right? That is what we have discussed so far. But I think we have missed some of the part while discussing this equation, that was this internal node capacitances. So you can see here that we have many internal node capacitances, right? For example, here would be internal node capacitance. If this is the basically two input gate, right? Two input NOR gate. If it is a three input NOR, then there would be there will be one more internal node capacitance, right? Same thing for the NAND gate. For in the pull down network, you have this internal node capacitances. So we have not considered this internal node capacitances at all for while you are considering this P average. So the estimated power, whatever we have estimated by this equation, that's actually the underestimate. We have underestimated the power dissipation, right? So we should, for correct calculation, we should consider this internal node capacitances as well. So let us go to the next page, or just a minute. Maybe let me do one thing. Let me copy this part. Oh, it is not been copied. Huh? Just a minute. File, home, draw. Oh, only this part has been. Okay, somewhere it is not been not working here, this copy and paste option. But then what we can do? Should we draw it again? Okay, no issue. I can draw it again quickly here. So here, okay, I think no need because it is already been drawn here. So it's great. So you see that the same circuit has been also drawn here, right? This NOR gate, right? To input NOR gate. So here you consider this is the internal node capacitance, which is denoted by this internal. This is the load capacitance CL, right? Now think about this input A, right? And input A, suppose with respect to time, is changing like this. Okay, with respect to time, input is changing like this. And think about this B, it is changing exactly as shown like this, right? Then if this A and B are changing like this, then what about this voltage V, voltage at this output, V out? So you see here when this A is when this A is 0, right, B is 1, right? When this A is 0, B is 1. So you can see simultaneously none of, if this transistor is on, this transistor is off. If this is on, then this is off, right? So obviously there will be no direct path from this VDD till this V out. So this CL will not be charged, right? So you see that here this V out has been shown here. So V out is not being charged here. So V out is still at this 0 only, logic 0, right? So that way, if you just consider for these two input, this input A and B in this and their waveform is like this, then you will probably say that there will be no power dissipation, right? Because this capacitor is not at all charging, right? But if you consider the internal node capacitances, that is the C internal here, then you see how this V internal is changing. So here this is 0. See, this is 0, this is 1. So A is 0, B is A is 0, B is 1. So when this A is 0, this transistor is on. So this internal capacitances, this capacitance will be charged, right? It will charge, say to some voltage. We don't know what will be the voltage. It may charge to till VDD. It depends on the time, or it may charge maybe some lower voltage than this VDD. So, but it will charge, right? The voltage here will be higher, right? Now you see the next one. Here it is 1, here it is 0. When this become 1, this becomes 0, right? Then what will happen? Then you see this is now off, right? When this is off, so obviously it is not charging anymore, but this is now on, so this can now discharge and slightly charge this Cl, right? So that way you can say like it will now be discharged, and if you say that Cl is very quite heavy load, then the discharge of this C internal will not change this V out quite significantly, right? So V out will still be at the near to that 0 volt only. But due to the discharge, this capacitance, this internal voltage will become now 0, right? So again you can see this become 1 0 1 0. So even though it looks like the CL is not changing or the V out is constant, but if you consider the internal node voltage, then you can see that is actually toggling, right, with this type of input of A and B. Right, so that has been written here. You can see, notice that the internal node undergoes several transitions while the output node remains unchanged. Right, so that means if you are considering only the previous equation, that is CL into this alpha CL into VDD square into F, so that might not be the correct expression for considering the energy. So I think a more general way would be to consider the generalized expression like this. This is the P average, the average power. This average power is this I equal to 1 to n. N is what? N is the total number of this kappa, means total number of nodes actually. So you can see here the nodes is like 1 and 2. So that this also include the load capacitance, right? So here we are writing this alpha I because for different capacitance, this alpha or switching activity might be different. That you can also see. Alpha is here something and alpha is here something, right? Then Ci is that individual capacitance into Vi, because we don't know for the particular capacitance what will be the maximum voltage or what will be the total swing across a particular capacitance. So we need to calculate that and consider that actual capacitance, right, into same as this VDD into F, right? So I hope this generalized this equation is clear to you. So for calculating the total average power, we should consider this one, right? So other than this, you also know that there will be like short circuit power dissipations, which is which will happen due to the when both the transistors will be in the saturation, and simultaneously both the transistor, if you consider this inverter case, both the transistor will be on, right? So this also only happens when both the transistors are on, right? And I think we have discussed it quite detail, so I think we should not discuss here in much more detail, right? So this is give the short circuit power dissipation, right? So again the short circuit power this dissipation again depends on this frequency of this input or the clock frequency, right? Other than that, different leakage power dissipation or the static power dissipation, that because of the subthreshold conduction, because of this reverse bias PN junction, there will be leakage current. But those are mostly the static power dissipation. And while considering the total power dissipation in a particular CMOS circuit, then we have seen that mostly the total power dissipation will be dominated by the dynamic power dissipation or the switching power dissipation, right? So we will focus primarily on this, right, on this equation only for this dynamic power dissipations, right? So now the issue would be, how can we reduce this power consumption? So if now here again we are considering the general equations, okay, because you can also you can we are not considering the general equations, the general equation that we have discussed here, right? But if this is suppose this CIs are negligible, or suppose for an inverter, right? For an inverter there will be no internal capacitance, right? So for inverter the same equation, this equation would be valid, right? Say for we are considering the case for inverter. So for low power, you can so you can see the average power is proportional to this VDD square. So obviously, if you want to reduce the total power that has been means that has been dissipated in a particular circuit, then obviously you need to reduce this VDD because it has a dependence, like quadratic dependence on this VDD, right? So first thing is that we can reduce this VDD, but see what will be the consequences. So you try to recall these characteristics. Do you remember these characteristics? Here one side we have plotted normalized delay, other side we have plotted this normalized power dissipation, and x-axis is the then a supply voltage. So you can see the supply voltage. With increasing the supply voltage, then what will happen? What will happen to this normalized power dissipation? Obviously the power dissipation will go rise, right? Because it is proportional to VDD square. So power dissipation is rising, right? But what about the normalized delay? Right, you remember the delay will reduce, right? Because the higher the VDD, higher will be the driving capability or higher will be the ID, all right? So to charge a particular capacitor, if the ID is higher, then to charge a particular capacitor with a higher ID, you need less time, right? So that means the delay will reduce. So you can see the delay will fall down, right? So see that requirement is type of contradictory. That for normal, if you want a lower delay, then you have to go for the higher VDD. But when you are using higher VDD, the power dissipation will increase, right? But now if the primary focus is not the normalized delay but on the power dissipation, then we have to more focused on the power dissipation only. This power dissipation is now the primary focus. But how can we reduce the power dissipation but still try to maintain the delay or the performance of the circuit to a moderate level? That we should look into. So here we can see here couple of other points are also written. But if only the power supply voltage is scaled down, okay, while keeping the all other parameters same, then the propagation delay that will increase, right? Because low power, low supply voltage, so that means the less drive capability, so more time to charge the capacitor. Sorry, I have written here all the things in a quite detail so that while you are reading it will be helpful for you for this video. Right. So let us go to the next page and see. So, but when you are, suppose if you are scaling this VDD, you are making this VDD down. But what about the threshold voltage? But if the threshold voltage of the transistor is also scaled down, then the, okay, okay, let me put it in this way. Maybe let me go to the previous page here. So here, what I have said here is that if the power supply voltage has been reduced, if this VDD you are reducing, so obviously ID will reduce, right? Because why? Because the current would be proportional to, if we say like say very simplistically, then the current would be proportional to VDD minus VTH square, right? Now we are reducing this, so obviously this ID will also reduce, right? But there is an also possibility that at the same time we can reduce VDD at the as well as the threshold voltage, right? So if we can do that, then what will happen? We can compensate that decrease of this ID with decrease in this ID somewhat. Why? That we can see in the next page. Why somewhat? So however, if this threshold voltage of this transistor is also scaled down, then the delay can be reduced, because now the ID can be enhanced and that way you can reduce the delay. So here one beautiful graph has been shown here. You can see this direct y axis it is showing the normalized delay, x axis it is showing the supply voltage, right? And you know that, right, as discussed in the previous page, that with increase in the supply voltage the delay should go down, right? That you can see that delay should go down. But what about if you consider the curve for multiple transistors with multiple threshold voltage, right? For example, one transistor having a threshold voltage of 0.5, another transistor 0.4, another transistor 0.3, then you can see for all of them with reduction of this VD, with reduction of this VD, delay is increasing, right? But you can see the increase in delay will be much more significant for a transistor whose threshold voltage is higher. So this curve clearly shows that if you are reducing this VDD, then to reduce the delay, you should also reduce the threshold voltage. But you know, the threshold voltage cannot be scaled uh, in a 1:1 ratio with that of this VDD. Why? Because there are a couple of things. So if you now consider this ID versus VGS, right, in a linear scale. So in a linear scale, ID VG for NMOS, it is like this, right? This threshold voltage is positive, VTH is positive, right? This is 0, right? If the same plot I have to draw it in a log scale, right, then it would look like this, right? So here again you can just say that this is the same amount. So here this is the threshold voltage. Okay, so here this is the threshold voltage for of this transistor, right? So you can see when you are going below this threshold voltage, you have this leakage current, right? If you were, suppose if it is zero 0.5 volt, now you were considering at this 0.2, you have this much leakage. Even if you consider at Vg equal to 0 volt, right? If you consider this Vg equal to 0 volt, then you can see even you have still this much of leakage current that is flowing, right? Now say that other parameters of this transistor has been unaltered. Only parameter that has been altered for this particular NMOS is the threshold voltage. Now we have this almost we have tried to design the same transistor with a lower threshold. Okay, say this. So I am trying to draw one plot which is almost type of parallel to this, right? So for this next transistor that I am drawing in this with the cyan color, so here this is the new threshold voltage, right, which is lowered. Obviously say it is say that threshold voltage is 0.2 volt, right? So which is lower than this, right? But see the issue, as it has to be parallel with this, then what is the leakage current at Vg equal to 0? See, here the leakage current was this much, but for this transistor whose threshold voltage is lower, the leakage current is this one. And remember, this axis is in log scale. So even though it is look like they are closer, but here it will be the difference of leakage current would be of multiple orders, maybe maybe 100 to 1000 times. Okay, leakage current increase if you reduce the threshold voltage, right? So obviously this leakage current is due to the subthreshold leakage, right? So the subthreshold leakage will again create the power dissipation, right? So considering this, you know, if you want to reduce this VDD, suppose this VDD from this 2.5 volt to 1 volt, you can probably do that, right? So how much you have changed? So you have changed it to even how much? 2.5 times, right? So and suppose the threshold voltage was earlier 0.5. Now if you really want to make it 2.5 times of this, or make it or in the same scale, you really cannot do that, because you have to consider the leakage current for these low threshold transistors as well, right? So this leakage current is operating, means you should consider the leakage current when the device is not operating, means when the VGS equal to 0, means during standby condition. So your standby power dissipation will increase significantly if you reduce the threshold voltage of the transistor, right? So we cannot really scale on a 1:1 scale, as we are, as means if you are scaling this VDD, we can do that VDD scaling quite drastically. But what about VT? VT, yeah, we have to be quite cautious when we are doing the scaling of this VT. The other point is the noise margin. See, if for some device the threshold voltage is of 0.2 volt only, then it will be quite prone to the noise, right? Only a small peak of noise of 0.2 volt can turn it on, right? So we have to be also careful on that, right? So here you can see this low threshold voltage or the threshold volt of the VTH scaling issue. So when you significantly reduce the threshold voltage, so basically you have the issue of this low noise margin and the high subthreshold conduction, right? That we have just now discussed. High subthreshold conduction, right? And high subthreshold conduction means you have the high static power dissipation, isn't it? So probably just by decreasing VD, just by decreasing VD to decrease the power consumption does not help, because that way you are increasing your delay. So the effective way, the way we thought of, at the same time we are reducing this VDD, at the same time let us also reduce the threshold voltage. But here also we have seen we cannot arbitrarily reduce the threshold voltage, because then this would give these issues, right? So what is the solution? Let us see in the next page. So one of the way that by which you can actually solve this is by using this variable threshold CMOS, or this one. Let me put it a little bit down. This is variable threshold CMOS, or in short it is also called VT CMOS. So the actually the circuit is quite simple. You see, you consider this first part, this left hand part of the circuit. It is an inverter circuit, right? CMOS inverter circuit. V in, V out, PMOS or NMOS, right? Now, and in normal, okay, you consider first this one. That would be easier for us. So you see this V in, this is V out, right? And for normal CMOS or normal static CMOS, this is the body. The body is connected with the source or shorted with the source. And here, this is the body. This body is also shorted with the source, right? For NMOS, it will be grounded, and for PMOS, it is connected with this VDD, so that the V of SB would be equal to 0, right? And here V of SB is also equal to 0 for this NMOS, right? So here basically we are the substrate is actually grounded for this base, or other way we can say the source to base body bias is actually equal to 0, right? So for this case, the threshold voltage, suppose for this transistor the threshold voltage is for this one, right? For this one the threshold voltage is 0.2, right? And for this PMOS the threshold voltage is minus 0.2. Okay, so we have constructed two low threshold voltage, NMOS and PMOS, right? So while they are operating, then there you can see that their threshold voltages are quite low, plus minus only 0.2 volt, right? So if the threshold voltage is low, then the previous page only we have discussed we can actually reduce the supply voltage without much affecting the delay, right? So we can use that because it is a low threshold, right? So please try to understand the what will be the power dissipation for this case. The power dissipation in the on state will not be much, because would be even lower than the previous case, because now we have reduced this VDD, and you remember the power is C VDD square F into alpha. So as we have reduced this VDD, so this total power P average has also been reduced for this device when it is on, right? But our in the previous page you have also seen there will be an issue of the subthreshold leakage conduction when the device will be in the standby mode, right? So when the device is in the standby mode, that means PMOS is off, NMOS is also off, right? Both are actually off, both are not working, right? So so here you can see what is happening. So we have used this, or we have connected the body of this PMOS and this NMOS with this particular circuit, which is the substrate bias control circuit. So by using the substrate bias control circuit, we can vary or change this substrate to, means the body to, substrate, or means we can change this V of SB, right? So you know that what is the effect of changing the substrate bias or the body bias? By changing the substrate or body bias, you can also change the threshold voltage of the MOSFET, right? I think we can go to this here. So you can see it here. If this is an illustration with an NMOS, right? This is an illustration with an NMOS. So here you can see this NMOS. This is that source. This has been grounded. This is gate. This is drain, and this is that body. So here you know the threshold voltage for this MOSFET can be given by this expression, right? And this is the that depletion charge, right? This part, last part is the depletion charge. When you change this, this body bias, then from 0 to -2 volts. So basically, you are reverse biasing this PN junction. Then you are this term would be now modified with this, right? So here would additional minus VB term would come, because remember VB is negative, so it has to be actually 2 phi A plus 2 volt actually. So this term has increased. So obviously you can see that the threshold voltage when this VB you have applied equal to -2 volt has increased, right? So by reverse biasing this PN junction, you can increase the threshold voltage of this NMOS. The same concept is also been applied for PMOS, where by applying a proper bias to this body, you can also change the threshold voltage of that PMOS, right? And that has basically been used here, right? As you can see here. So here it has been connected with this substrate control, substrate bias control, and this is also connected with this, right? When the device is active, it was giving this 2 volt, this VBP was giving 2 volt, and VBN, okay, it was giving 0 volt. So this source is ground and this is giving 0 volt. So basically it is again been grounded, right? So the threshold voltage would be lower. And here see, this is at 2 volt, and here this, when the device is active, this is also giving 2 volt. So basically these two are shorted. So again the threshold voltage would be -2 volt. But when the device is in standby, this circuit produces a 4 volt. So the 4 volt is now going here. So that makes the reverse bias of this, and the threshold voltage is now increased from -2 volt to minus 0.5 volt, right? Now for the same here, for this NMOS, you can see during standby, the voltage apply is this -2 volt. So when you apply here -2 volt and this is 0 volt, so you are again reverse biasing this PN junction. So that way you are again changing the threshold voltage. Now the threshold voltage is changed or increased from this 0.2 volt to say 0.5 volt. Now as the threshold voltage is now changed during the standby condition, now you try to recall the previous page that we have, what we have drawn, the subthreshold leakage conduction. When you change the threshold voltage, the subthreshold leakage will, the issue will also reduce, right? So the subthreshold leakage conduction due to that leakage will be reduced by controlling the threshold voltage of this NMOS and PMOS by using this substrate bias control circuit, isn't it? So is that clear to you? Okay.
So,
Hmm.
sir, your inverter is in standby mode means that both are not operating, right?
Let me, yeah, that's what I told, but I think I should correct myself that it is inverter cannot be like both. See here what is happening. So standby mode means it is not switching. I should correct myself. It is not operating means it is not switching. So it is not switching means, suppose if it is constant at either 0 or at 1, means input is either 0 or 1. So when the input is either 0 or 1, then what is happening? Either of these transistor would be on, right?
Yes, sir.
Right, either of these transistor is on, right, and on transistor would be off. That way that way you can think of it. And the other way would be, as you have mentioned, maybe this V in, okay, this V in you have used it such a way that, before that you have used suppose some tri-state buffer, okay, so that when depending upon the clock position or and the previous condition, you have actually used the high resistance, means the high impedance state here for a particular condition. So during that here the V in also might be disconnected from the previous all inputs. So in that case, what would be the status of this PMOS and NMOS?
The input is floating, right?
Input is floating. Then what will happen?
Or maybe both are in saturation or something like at VTH or something like that.
Okay, so that is an interesting question. Please try to think on this, and maybe we can discuss. Okay, maybe during the our question and answer sessions, when we are discussing this test two results, maybe at that time I will ask you again. So suppose now you have disconnected this input, okay, or this is connected with the tri-state buffer, and the buffer state is in a high impedance state. So the V in is basically floating. So then what will be the power dissipation of this, or what will be the state of this PMOS and NMOS? Okay, please try to think in bit more detail. Okay, but I hope that one thing you have considered, that here we have used the body bias to change the threshold voltage. So while making this CMOS, or means either PMOS or NMOS, you remember that fabrication process of this PMOS and NMOS. So for example, if it is NMOS, then it is N plus N plus. This is this is P silicon, and here we also have to dope this P plus and take a contact from here. This is the body contact. So this is source, this is drain, and this would be the gate, right? This would be the gate. Then the body contact we have to take separately from here. Same thing we have to do for this PMOS as well. So that means here this N plus in silicon, this is P plus, this is P plus, this is N plus, this is source, this is drain, this is gate, and this is the body, right? So that means both P well and N well you have to make for if you want to control this or if you have to access this body bias individually for this transistor, then this transistor has to be fabricated in this fashion, means the twine well process. Remember that fabrication process that we have discussed, twine well fabrication process. So both P well and N well you have to go used. Right. So here are some more things that I have written here, that the same thing what you have discussed. In active mode, VBN equal to 0. So VDD is the VBP or VDD equal to 2 volt, VTN equal to 2 volt, VTA like threshold voltage of NMOS is 2 volt, PMOS is minus 2 volt. So this is the low threshold voltage case. So when is the low threshold voltage case, you have the low dynamic power dissipation, because dynamic power dissipation is proportional to VDD square. So as we can lower the threshold voltage, we can also lower the VDD. So that way the power dissipation will also be lower. But as we have also simultaneously also reduced this VTH, so the overdrive, that is the VDD minus VTH, this is not that bad. So we can gain significant amount, or we can achieve significant amount of switching speed. Right. So this is in the active mode, but in the standby mode, the VBN become this, the body bias for this NMOS become minus 2 volt, and the body bias of this PMOS become plus 4 volt. So the threshold voltage has now increased for the NMOS to plus 5 and plus 0.5, and threshold voltage of this PMOS would become minus 0.5. So this is the high threshold. So when you have the high threshold, so leakage current issue is been solved. So static power dissipation is also been solved. So this is one way by which you can actually use this variable threshold voltage CMOS to achieve the low power dissipation or to design a low power logic circuit. Okay, one another way would be to use this multiple threshold CMOS, or this empty CMOS circuits. So in empty CMOS circuits, what we do actually, we we do not use any body control. We do not use any body control, but rather what we do, but rather what we do, we use we use two different gates actually. So one gate we call it as this standby gate, so that you can see it here. This is standby mode, this is standby gate PMOS, and this is standby gate this NMOS. And we have a to control this to gate, we have this controlled, control input, standby and standby bar, right? This inside one, this is the normal CMOS circuit, but for this CMOS circuit, the threshold voltage for this particular in PMOS and this particular NMOS are low. So you can see clearly is mentioned the CMOS logic block with low threshold voltage. So in the active mode, when the devices are active, then the standby is actually 0. So standby is 0. This standby bar become 1. So this is conducting, right? And this is the low threshold. This VDD we have already lowered down. VDD we have already lowered, fixed, right? And these threshold voltages are lower. So we can achieve the speed, but at the same time we can reduce the power dissipation, right? And during standby means when the device is not operating or not doing anything, we put this standby equal to 1. So when you put standby equal to 1, this becomes 0, right? When this is 1, this is off, right? This is off, right? But what about the threshold voltage of these standby transistors? The standby transistors are made with a higher threshold, right? This is a higher threshold PMOS and this is a high threshold NMOS. So during standby, the power dissipation or the leakage current would be through this only standby transistors. And as the threshold voltage is already higher, so the power dissipation would be lower, right? So you can see the delay is mostly, if you have to consider the delay, then the delay is mostly associated with this part of the circuit. And if you consider the power is mostly associated, means the standby power is mostly associated with the standby transistors, right? So here it has been written, you see, this in the active mode, low threshold voltage MOSFET. So it is the low VDD. We have already used low VDD, so low this power dissipations. In standby mode, the high threshold voltage. So high threshold voltage means reduced standby power dissipation. But even though you can see some advantages, some other disadvantages we should also mention here. The one of the disadvantages, see, in the same die, now we have to fabricate transistors with different threshold voltages, which are not very easy tasks. Means some transistor has to be higher threshold voltage and some transistor has to be lower threshold voltage. That is from the fabrication point of view. And the other from the design point of view is that for this any logic, at the top you have to use one standby PMOS and at the bottom you have to use the standby this NMOS, right? So that basically increases the overall circuit area, at the same time the parasitic capacitances, right? So that will again impact the the delay of the total circuit. So this is some of the disadvantages associated with this type of circuit, which is the multiple threshold CMOS circuit. But here we do not have to use some control circuit to change the threshold voltage of the transistors, as we have to do for variable threshold voltage mode. So depending on the other approaches, another technique is called this technology mapping. Okay, so in technology mapping, basically what we try to address is that we are not considering with this VDD, but rather we will be now focused with this term alpha. So alpha is what we have already discussed, is the switching activity or the activity factor, right? Now how to estimate this alpha, okay, for a particular logic gate? Let us see that and then we'll come back to our discussion with this technology mapping part. Okay, so let us consider this simple thing, this AND gate only. This AND gate, two input AND gate, A and B. This output is basically this AB, right? Now here we have denoted two parameters here at the input side, which one is PA and the other one is PB. So PA indicates, you see it is clearly written here, PA indicates the probability that the input A is 1. So remember, PA is the probability of the input A that to be 1. PB is the probability of the input B to be equal to 1, right? Okay. Then this PF is associated with the output. Similarly, PF is the probability that the output is equal to 1, right? So we are like for other gates as well, the same nomenclature has been used. Okay. Then if this is PA, if this is PB, that is the the probability that this A would be 1 and the probability of this B would be would be 1, that is PB, then this PF, that is the probability that the output would be 1, would be equal to PA into PB, that you know, right? If this is the probability of being 1 and this is the probability of being 1, then PA into PB would give the probability of the that would give the probability when the output would be equal to 1, right? So this PF is PA into PB, right? So now if you know this PA, PA is the probability that the output would be equal to 1, then you can think in other way, that when, if this is the probability that the output would be equal to 1, then what is the probability that the output would be equal to 0? That would be total probability minus PA into PB. So this would be the probability when the that this output would be equal to 0, right? Now what is the switching activity? Switching activity is when the output of this gate is switching from this 0 state to this 1 state, right? Then only the power will be dissipated. So how can you find it? So this is the probability that this output can be equal to 1, and this is the probability that the output can be equal to 0, right? So then what would be the probability that the output can be equal to that the output would be that the output is switching from this 0 to 1, means that is nothing but, simple multiplication of this, right? So this is nothing but would be equal to 1 minus PA into PB into this PA PB. Let me put it down, into PB, right? So which is nothing but 1 minus PF into this PF. So you can see here it has been written here. So switching activity for this gate would be given by this PF into 1 minus PF. Okay. Now, if you have understood this, let us also see a couple of other gates, then it will be much more clear to you. So what about this OR gate? Okay, two input OR gate. So here you can see this A, B, PA, PB. So what will be the probability that the output equal to that the output would be equal to 1, right? So here instead, so this is the AND gate, right? So for AND gate, the output would be, when the output would be PA into PB, because when both the inputs are 1, then only the output will become 1. But for OR gate, it is like for any, if at least one of the input is 1, then the output can become 1, right? For that is for OR gate. So rather than going from that way, let us think the other way, that when the output can be equal to 0. Please try to understand, when the output of the OR gate can be equal to 0, when both the inputs are equal to 0, right? Right. So if this PA is the probability that the output is equal to 1, then 1 minus PA would be the probability that this if this PA is the probability that this input A is equal to 1, then 1 minus PA would be the probability when the input A is equal to 0. Similarly, 1 minus B would be the probability for input B to be equal to 0, right? So if we multiply these two probability, right, then it will give when both the probabilities are equal to, means when both inputs are equal to 0, right? So for this condition, right, or this is the probability when the output would be equal to 0. Then what would be the probability when the output is equal to 1? It would be 1 minus of this probability, right? So similarly, if you have to consider for this two input NAND gate, so you will already find what is the for the AND gate. So for two input NAND gate, it will be 1 minus of this. If you have to find two input NOR gate, then it would be again 1 minus of this, right, the PF values. And once you know the PF value, then obviously you can find the switching activity by from this, right, that PF into 1 minus PF. Similarly, if you have 4 input AND gate, then obviously the PF would be equal to the probability of multiplication of all four, right, all 4 inputs, right? So from this, I mean, by using this, you can actually find the probability of any any logic gate, right? So then let us take one example and see how with this we can check the efficiency in terms of power dissipation for different circuit designs. For example, let us consider this 4 input AND gate. Generally, we do not make gates with 4 or with fan in 4 or more than that, right? We have seen that then the delay will significantly increase, that we have seen earlier, right? So probably, if I ask you that you have only 2 input AND gate and you need to implement using 2 input AND gate, only, using the you have to implement this function f with 2 input NAND gate, two input AND gate only, then probably you can think of this design where you connect A, B, get F, connect C, get F, E, get F, connect D, right, and get the output here, right? This is maybe one design, or maybe the other design would be like you can make it A, B, right, and make type of X, C, D, Y, and then connect Z. So this is basically chain type structure, and this is basically the T type structure, right? So here, see what are the differences. So for design one, see, for design one, that means, okay, let me keep it like this. For this design, okay, let us calculate what are the probabilities, okay, here. So then we will try to find what is the switching factor or switching probability. Then from that, what is the total switching pling activity. So first, what is PE? You remember how to find PE, right? This is AND gate. So it will be PA into PB. So you can find it. Then you can find what is this alpha E. Alpha E will be PE into 1 minus of PE. So this is equal to this. So you can find PF. This, now you know this is what is the value of this PE, right? You can use the value of PE and PC and find what is the value of PF. So this is alpha F. Now you can also find PG. Similarly, PG is once you know this PF, then PF and basically PD. From this PF and PD, you can find what is this alpha G. Then what is the total switching activity? Total switching activity means the switching activity at each and individual nodes that we need to add. So when you actually add up, it comes out to be this one. So remember this number, 0.0679, right, for this design one, chain structure, right. Now if you consider the other design, which is the design 2, that is this one, so here you can find what is Px, you can find what is Py, then you can also find what is Pz, then from here you can find alpha x, alpha y, alpha z, right? So the values are same thing, right? Then you can also find what is the total switching activity, right? So if you now add up all these things, then you see the total switching activity is 0.2358. Now compare this and this value. So obviously you see for the design 2, the switching activity is much higher compared to the design 1, right? So then for this particular case, the chain design or the design 1 has the lower switching activity compared to the tree structure. So, and you remember, if a power dissipation is proportional to this switching activity or power, right? This is alpha VDD square C into F, right? So if this alpha is lower for this, if the other parameters are constrained, I mean same for both the design, then obviously this design 1 will dissipate less power compared to this design 2, right? However, this is true when the probabilities of this input A, B, PA, PB, PC, and PD are like this, right? For example, let us see in the next page. Just remember PA, PB, PC, and these two, first two are 0.2, 0.2, second two are 0.5, 0.5. In the next page, let us change this probability and then see what happens. Now see, I have clearly mentioned here, see this previous values are this much, right? These are the previous values, but now we have changed in now we have like this two has gone up and this two has gone down, 0.5, 0.5, 0.2, 0.2, right? Now you try to calculate the switching activity at each node and then find the total one. Then you see, then you will find that for this case now it is 0.2449, whereas for the second case it is 0.23 0.58 for the same design. If you have changed the probability of this input or this signal probability here, right? Now you try to compare the results here. Okay, now you see the same design 2 looks like better compared to slightly better compared to this design 1, right? So by then from this switching activity point of view, you can actually compare the circuit in terms of power dissipation and see which circuit is power efficient compared to the other circuit. I hope this part is clear to you.
Sir, I had a doubt like when we are adding up the alphas,
Mm-hmm.
so we are assuming that the parasitic capacitance at each node is equal, right?
Right, right. We are, that's what I am, that's what, we are assuming that the capacitance, VD and all these things are not altering that significantly. But actual calculation, you should, means actually, when you have to do it, you have to calculate all the things.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Then another technique would be this input ordering. Okay, input ordering means suppose you have to make get this Z. Okay, now tell me what is this Z? Z is basically this is C. X is equal to AB. Then with and get C. So basically Z is equal to ABC. So this ABC is a function, a Boolean function. I can implement it using this design 1, or at the I can also implement it first B and C and then A and make a design 2, or maybe other designs are also possible you can think of, right? But now try to estimate again the total alpha for this first design, that is this case. Okay, so you do that again, same thing, you have to find px, you have to find pz, then you have to find alpha x, then you have to find alpha z, right? Then the total alpha would be, total switching activity would be equal to alpha x, this plus this, right? This. So if we add these two, then it becomes 0.0999. Now consider the design 2. In this design 2, calculate alpha y, calculate alpha z, right? Then find total switching activity alpha y plus alpha z, right? So what you can see from here now. So for this it is coming around 0.0295. So compare this to, see this is much lower. Design 2, the switching activity is much lower compared to design 1, right? So one thing I think you have noticed here that, okay, let me choose another color. See the, signal probability here, PA equal to 0.5, PB equal to zero point 0.2, PC equal to zero point 0.1, right? So the probability is higher for this case. So instead of taking this higher probability input here, if we shift it to the later stages, right, like from here to this you see, here we have introduced it in a much later stage, then the total switching activity you can significantly reduce. So that has been said here. See, so it has been beneficial to postpone the introduction of these input signals that has a high transition rate. For example, in the above example, it is the input A, right? So whenever you see that some input with a higher activity, so try not to introduce it at a initial stages, try to introduce it at a later stages. And I think that is also clear, right? Because if you now introduce it the higher stages and it is switching activity is higher, so that means it will try to flip it quickly, right? So at the same time, then obviously here the output will also try to flip quickly, right? If this is switching also quickly, then obviously this will also switch quite quickly, right? So you have a much more switching means your switching activity will be increased a lot, right? So rather if you introduce this A later, then what will happen, this is less, right? Only at this output Z it will increase. Okay, here I want to also request you to note one thing, that see these are the signal probabilities, right? PA, that the signal can be at that the signal A can be at 0 B1, right? 0.5, or the signal B can be at 0. At logic 1 it is 0.2, right? And this 0.1 again for this PC, right? But you try to see what is the what is the PX. Okay, what is the transition probability? What is the transition probability, or sorry, I should say that not px, say see this alpha x. So what is the value of alpha x for here? Alpha x is equal to pa into pb into 1 minus pa into pb. What is the value of it? 0.09. Consider the value of pa and pb. pa is 0.5, pb is 0.5. These are the signal probabilities, right? So signal probabilities, see that signal probabilities are always much higher than the switching probability. Let me repeat it again. Signal probabilities are always much higher than the switching probability. Why I have said so? That would be clear to you. Maybe should I discuss it that first? Okay, let me discuss it first here. Then I will discuss it. Go to the previous page. Okay, so what about the power dissipation in dynamic CMOS logic gate? See, in dynamic CMOS logic gate, if you recall the dynamic CMOS logic gate, so it is this clock, right? And here is, suppose we are considering what is this gate in dynamic CMOS? In dynamic CMOS, what is this gate? Huh? What is this gate? NAND, right? Is it NAND or what?
Yes, sir. NAND.
Okay, so two input NAND gate, right? So if it is two input NAND gate, then, and this is the output, right? This is the CL, right? And at every stage, right, when the clock is equal to 0, that means in pre-charge state, this output capacitor or this output Y node will get charged, right? Okay, so if suppose initially the CL was discharged, then the capacitor will be charged, then there will be a power dissipation from this VDD, right? If the CL was not charged, sorry, if the CL was initially charged, if it is not charged, then the power will be dissipated due to charging. If it is not discharged, then there will be no power dissipation, right? Okay, but see, here the output node Y, whether that would be at 0 or 1, or the other way, whether this capacitance, output capacitance would be charged or not, that will be dependent only on the probability that whether this Y is at 0 or 1, right? If this Y is at 0, then only it will be charged. If this Y is at 1, then it will not be charged, so it will not be switching, right? So switching only happens when this Y is equal to 0. And what is Y? Y is the value of output. Or other way we can say, what is the probability that the output Y can be at logic 0? Then only there will be a power dissipation in dynamic CMOS, right? In previous gates, static gates, what we have seen, for static gates, the power dissipation depends on the transition when the output is changing from 0 to 1, right? And we have, I think, pointed out here that for these static gates, when this output is changing, we find that change from this switching activity. That depends on what is the this signal conditions and this output, how it is being varied, and from this, right? But for dynamic CMOS, on the other way, what is happening, whether it will get charged or not, whether that means the switching activity entirely dependent on the probability of y being equal to 0. That means the signal probability of this output. And as previously we have discussed, signal probability are always higher than the probability of transition, right? So the switching activity or this alpha value would also be higher for this dynamic CMOS logic gate. So the power dissipation for this dynamic CMOS logic gate would also be higher. Is that clear to you? No? Okay, let us read from here. If again, if you have any doubt, please let me know. It is important that you understand this. So see this in dynamic CMOS logic circuit, the output node is pre-charged during every clock cycle. That you agree? If the output value was equal to 0, if the output value was equal to 0, that is the output node was discharged, then the PMOS precharge that then the PMOS precharge transistor will draw a current from the power supply during precharge phase. That you also agree. If this is only discharge, then only power will be, then only energy will flow from this VDD and it will charge this CL. That is, the dynamic CMOS consume power every time the output value is equal to 0, regardless of this preceding or following value, right? It does not matter whether the previous output state, now the output state is 0, then it is charging. It does not matter whether the previous output state was 1 or the previous output state was 0. Similarly, it does not also matter whether the next output state will be 1 or the next output state will be equal to 0. Right? It depends only on the current output status only. Right? So the power consumption in dynamic CMOS is determined by the signal value activity only on this, not the transition probability. Try to recall the previous gate, all static CMOS gate so discussed so far. This switching activity depends on the transition when this output is transiting from means changing from 0 to 1. But here for this dynamic CMOS it only depends on when the present value of this output is equal to 0, right? And here okay, and you see here the transition probability or the switching activity is always smaller than the signal value probability, right? So transition probability is always smaller than the signal value probability. So that means the alpha value for this dynamic CMOS gates are higher. Hence, the power consumption of dynamic CMOS logic gates are typically higher than the static CMOS gate under the same conditions. So I hope this part is clear to you. If you have not have any specific question, then we can actually discuss this part quickly. So again, this is regarding that switching activity only. For example, this let us consider this CMOS NOR 2 gate. So how can you actually find what is the value of this here this PX, PY, all these things, right? And so here you can see you can draw this write this truth table for this particular gate. So 0 0 0 1 1 0 1 1 corresponding output. So you can see the input combinations, like this input combination where say this and this, they are equally likely to occur, right? Means the probability of having this input or having this, they are equal, right? If so, then the output, see here, the output is equal to 0, that is P naught for 3 cases, right? Out of 4, 3 cases the probability is 0, right? So the output, that the output would be equal to 1, that probability is equal to, that is 1 by 4th, right? So then what is the transition probability at this output node? That would be equal to when the output is changing from 0 to 1, right? So what is the probability the output is can be 0? 3 by 4, What is the probability that the output can be 1? So this is the probability, transition probability of this output Z, right? Okay. Then if you want to type of in the state diagram you want to show that, so you can see this is the zero state, this is the one state of this output, all right, and this is a transition from the zero state to one state. So this we have just now done, so this is this part only, right, and the probability is 3 by 16, right. Then what is the probability? Then the output would also change from 1 to 0. If you calculate it from here, that would be 1 by 4 into 3 by 4. So that would be also the same. What would be the probability that the output will change from 1 to 1? Then 1 by this 1 by 4 into 1 by 4 this. What would be the probability that the output will change from 0 to 0? 3 by 4, 3 by 4, 9 by this, right? So if any gate has been given, you should be able to find what would be the transition probability at its output, right?
Sir, but this assumes that X and Y switch like equally probably, right? Like
Right, exactly. This assumes that the X and Y switches probability because we don't have a control on this, right? Because now, okay, it is a good question. So suppose it might be coming from another NAND gate X, right? Then you right at the first gate only you have a control. You can say like what is the probability, right? So after that, if you know this what is PA and what is PB for this, right, then you can estimate this, then you can find this. Andhra?
yeah, got it.
Okay, this is done. Then another way would be this called the phase assignment. So here what we do is that suppose again this, if you consider this design and if you consider this design, both of them actually the output are same, right? You can see this output are same, right? So but here in this design we have a highly active node here present here, right? Then we have used an inverter, got make this as a bar and used this like this, right? And we are getting this. But here we are just making this highly active node directly connected with this and just change this gate so that the this is basically a Boolean manipulation, right? And so that we change the gate so that the output is the same, right? But here, see what we have achieved is that when we have highly active node here, then after that you have used an inverter. So this is another node. So this is also become highly active. So that means the capacitance is associated here, means the output capacitance of this inverter and input capacitance of this particular AND gate, that is continuously changing, right? If it is a high activity, then this node will also become highly active, right? Simultaneously, if this is changing, then output has to be also changed quite frequently. But for this design, we have only active node here, right? So if this is the active node, so this is the active node, so this will change this and the output of only this node is only changing. So here you can see there are two active nodes, this, but here it is only the one active node that will be going to occur. So that way also you can change the switching, switching probability at I means suppose you want to implement this, so you have an option of this or you have an option of this. So probably if you choose this one, you lose less power. That means this circuit would be much more power efficient, right? So similarly here in one example with an marks. So you can see this circuit and this circuit are basically the same. So here instead of this using only simple marks, we are using a NOT of this. So here instead one active node means node, so this will be also highly active. So this is this active node. So here we are just taking this one as this marks bar, right? So here this is the input, so only this output will only be affected from this highly active node. So logic gates can be moved across okay to do the Boolean manipulation to reduce the switching activity. So this is only also the thing, as a designer, that what you can think from circuit level point of view. Then other things are this called pin swapping. Okay, so what do you mean by pin swapping? Suppose this is one gate. Okay, what is this gate? This is an NAND gate, right? This is an 3-input NAND gate. This is also an 3-input NAND gate, right? But see that what we have changed here, the okay means suppose this is a 3-input NAND gate. Here we have made the inputs like C, B, A, right? And here this is a NAND gate. Here we have made it like this A, B, C, like this. Okay. So see the position of A is here. Okay. Position of B is here. Position of C is here. Okay. So and but this PA is quite high. Okay. So and here is PA greater than PB and greater than PC. So that means PA is changing quite frequently. Then PB, then PC is changing at a very at a slow rate. So if the change activity factor of this PA, sorry, the probability means the switching activity. I actually I should not say that it is the PA PB. This it is the switching activity. Okay, it is basically that the previous stage, the previous stage it is alpha A, alpha B, and alpha C. If this alpha A, because this A is also fed from some other previous gate, right? So this has some alpha switching activity. And we found that the switching activity for signal A or this input A is highest, then this B, then this C, right? And if we design it like this, then see what is happening. Suppose this signal is 1, right? A is 1, and during pre-charge, then what is happening? See, during pre-charge, while you are charging the CL, as this is also means 1 here, means many, there is the probability that this will be 1 also be higher, right? So there is a possibility that this capacitance C1 will get charged, right? Similarly, the second probability, higher probability is for B. There is also a probability that the C2 is also charged, right? But say that C is off, so it cannot actually discharge it completely. Say that this 2 can also charge, right? So this C1 and C2, this charging and this discharging probability, this would be also higher as you have this C1 and C2. Okay, why we are also saying this discharging? It may be also possible that it is 0 initial case. Then suppose when this has charge, right? When this has charge, then this is off. So it's fine. It has stored VDD. Then suppose it has again changed to 1, right? Before the other inputs are changed. So when it has changed to 1, then the CL can again discharge and charge the C1, right? Then if the C1 has suppose charge, then suppose now this is off, this transistor is off, but now this is on, then C1 can again discharge and charge this two, means there is some charge distributions, right? So in this case, in this type of case, so if you are designing it like that, then there is a highly possible that this C1 and C2 will be charged and discharged quite often. Rather, if you try to design it in other way, first C, which has the less switching activity, then B, then A. See, when you are changing A, then what is happening? See that this A, if it is only charged, it can only discharge, right? There is no path for charging because C switching activity is very less, right? So general thumb rule is that so the highly highly active nodes or highly active inputs, you should try to make them or put them as far as possible from this output node. So here you can see A switching activity is highest, so we should try to put this A as far as from this output node, right? So is that clear? So here the same thing has been written here. So for this case, the high activity node of this input should be far from this output, right? So this is for to reduce the power consumption. We are discussing couple of techniques here. So the among other techniques, one technique is called the reduction of glitches or the glitch reduction. So what do you mean by glitch or hazard? So glitch or hazards refer to the unwanted signal transition because of different delays in the different signal. Very easy that you will understand right now only. See, suppose this is the circuit, okay? This is the circuit. Okay, we have tried to implement in a this fashion, right? This is A, B, and C. Suppose these signals are changing simultaneously. This A, B, and C are changing simultaneously. And suppose here like this, A changing like this, B changing like this, C changing like this. Means all are turning on at the same time, right? Okay. Now, what about this E? Okay. So you see this. What is the expected output from this from E? So both has become 1. This 1. So what should be the value of D? Guys, please tell me. If both are A, what should be the value of D?
0.
Hmm?
0.
0. Both input, this is an AND gate, right? Both input 1, so it is 0. Now this is 1. So this E is expected to be?
1.
E is expected to be 1, right? So E is expected to be 1 from this circuit, right? But see actually what we are getting. So when you are this A has A and B has changed from 0 to 1 and C has also changed simultaneously. But what about D? So to get a change in this D, there will be one gate delay, right? From this input to output. So you can see that D has changed. D has changed from this. Suppose D was earlier 0 because earlier both A and B were 0, right? So D was earlier 0. Now from this, so D were earlier 1 because both are 0. A and B were 0. So D was earlier 1. Now it is switching from 1 to 0. But there will be some delay in that, right? So during after that delay, one gate delay, it has changed to 0, right? Fine. But what about C? C has changed during this time only. But see, during this time, D is still 1. During this time, this D is still 1, right? And C, D during this time, D is still 1. C is also 1, right? So both inputs are 1 for a small amount of time for this gate E, right? So both inputs and NAND gate 1 that will give to 0. So you can see, so the output at E which was initially high, then it will make a switch, right? Then you will make a switch, go to 0, right? And then again when when it has actually reached to this 0, then it become this 1 and 0, right? Then it become this 1 and then become 0, then E will again change back to its 1 position. So then E is again change position. But this, if you think about this part, this was completely unwanted, right? We do not want that. However, this is happening because there are because this logic gate means this implementation is unbalanced in terms of delay, right? So that means the if A, B, and C are changing simultaneously, then obviously we should face here one glitch. But one glitch means what? See that means E is initially discharged, then it has to again charge. So that means again there will be a power consumption because of this glitch, right? Otherwise it would have been there will be no power consumption, but now because of this glitch there will be a power consumption because it has to first discharge and then charge, right? So these glitches occur primarily due to the mismatch or imbalance in the path lengths of these logic gates, right? So for that, how to deal with this glitch, with that we can discuss in the next page. So here you can see this is one function implementation. If same function has been implemented here, this is the chain structure implementation, this is the tree structure implementation. But for the chain, if A, B, C, and D are changing simultaneously, then you can see you will get a couple of glitch. One again when there will be one delay here, so again you will get a glitch. Again one delay here, again you will get a glitch here, right? Again there will be, so you'll get multiple glitches here. Whereas this gate is quite balanced. You see that here is one delay, when here is one delay. When both of them are changing, then only the output is coming here, then only the F is changing. So that way, this tree structure are preferred for the delay path balance to reduce the number of glitches and the power dissipation. Again, in terms of switching activity also you should check. and then you should compare which one is more important for you, whether it's the glitch power reduction that is the more important, or the switching activity wise improvement is much more appealing for your case. Yeah, any question? Okay, so what about this quickly, this glitch in dynamic CMOS logic circuit? I think the answer is well known to you. Glitch is not a significant issue for dynamic CMOS, because dynamic CMOS, at least once the means during evaluation, only once you can have a change, because once the capacitor is discharged, then there is nothing, right? Then, right, then until the next pitcher state comes, you cannot do anything. So glitches is not a significant issue, as each node undergoes at least one most transition per clock cycle. Right. Okay. So we are today discussing couple of techniques. So the next technique is called this gated clock signal. Okay. So what do you mean by this gated clock signal? Is that, let us try to explain it using an example. Suppose consider the case of this n-bit number comparator, right? So we have two numbers of n bits each, and we want to compare them, right? So the from 0th position to n minus 1 position, right? Right. First one is 0th position, and this n minus 1. So if suppose the if we can take or pick this first two bits, means the MSB, right? MSB of this two numbers, then what will happen? If you just compare these two, and we found that these two numbers are not equal, if we found these two numbers are not equal, so that means from this only we can say which one is larger or which one is smaller, right? No need to compare the remaining n minus 1 bits, right? So here you can see this a of n minus 1, that is that number, this two numbers a and b, and this a n minus 1 is the nth n minus 1 position bit of this means of first MSB bit of that number. This is the MSB bit of this second number, right? So you are comparing, how do you compare? We are compared with this gate, right? So if this during this comparison, if we found that these two are similar, right, then only we should go for, means we should send the next bits, next bits in 0 to n minus 1 bits, right? 0 to n minus 1 bits for comparison, right? If we found that these two are different, then directly this can go to this bit register MSB comparator. Directly we can compare this and give the output from here, right? So if we found that we are using this path, or from this, these two numbers are different, right? Then we can use one gate, and we are, you see, any this registers, that means you have to use this clock. So we are also feeding this clock through this. So here this is the AND gate. So if this is 0, this will not be enabled. So the gate clock pulse gate will not be gate pulse will not be activated. So it will this part, you will not be loading and comparing or using your other using this n minus 1 bit comparison, that you will not be doing. So this is called this clock gating. Okay. So clock gating you understood here. So if certain blocks of a system are not immediately used during the current clock cycle, we can temporarily disable the block by disabling the clock signal. So this is called the conditional clock gating. Right. So based on one condition, we are saying, no need to do the other work, because the first bit comparison itself has given me the answer. Same thing you can also think for, and this D flip flop for low power application. For example, if this is the input D and this is the clock, so rather than directly feeding the clock to this D flip flop, we can make a gated clock, right? And you can see this how we are using this. we are using passing it through an XOR gate, and this output is here. So only if there is a change, then only the clock is been fed and the output will fade, right? Otherwise, there will be no clock, no transition, no power distributions. So if this D and Q are same, then the clock is disabled, right? If the clock is disabled, then basically it is not dissipating the power. So these are some techniques by which, as a designer, you can think of reducing the power. Then, on the same line, we should also discuss about another technique which is called this input gating. So it is almost the same thing. See here, suppose there are two inputs like A and B, and these two inputs has been fed to these three blocks, this F1, F2, and F3, right? So maybe this is doing one purpose, one implementing, suppose one Boolean function, this is implementing another Boolean function, this is implementing another Boolean function, right? And after that, we have we are using the multiplexer select lines. So depending on the select line, suppose this is addition, if you say, and this is suppose subtraction, this is suppose some different operation, right? A plus B, this is A minus B. So if you are using marks and we are selecting the first one, we are selecting the plus, then we should, when this A and B are changing, then only you want, if I am selected this plus operation, that means this block, then only the power distribution should occur because of this and related to this marks, right? No need to do the execution in this F2 and F3, right? So we can make this F2 and F3 at that, for that moment, temporarily stop, say that, we are asking only F1 to operate, right? So that way also you can save some power from here. So you can see from here, if this F1 is only selected, then besides F1, F3 and also participate in this operation. So which is not useful for if this F1 is selected, but it consumes the power. So we can disable this F2 and F3 when F1 is selected. Just to give you an circuit, means one type of block implementations. So suppose here there are two you can say this two registers, right? We are feeding this A and B sequentially one by one. So one by one we are doing this operation. This is addition operation, this is subtraction operation. So this is the marks. So when you are using this positive one, right, then we will and here before this we have used this tri-state buffers, right? We have used this tri-state buffers with the select lines F1 and F2, right? So when you select this by this one, so we also select this F1, means we will allow this F1 to pass this A and B through for addition, right? We will restrict this, or we will keep this F2, this tri-state buffer, in a high impedance state so that nothing can pass here, and this should not do any power consumption, okay, here, right? So this is a quite easy things only, right? This pipelining part we'll discuss later on. Pipelining, parallelism, we will discuss later on, not today. Retiming also will do later. Yeah, there are small things, few things are also here. So this is one is called the bus segmentation. Okay, so what do you mean by this bus segmentation? So bus segmentation is, suppose you have this bus means the data line, right? So you have a data line, and with this data line you have these modules. Okay, these are different modules: module 1, module 2, module 3, 4, 5, 6. So for example, here 6 modules has been connected, right? So if you want to connect this single bus with all the modules means they are doing different operations. Okay, here you can see these buffers are here. So this is for, like, if you want to change some, request something, you have to use this one, right? If you have to get something out of this, you have to use this one, right? So this for each module, you can see the buffers has been connected with this, right?
Sir, we have an exam at 12 o'clock. Can we leave?
12 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay, give me another 2-3 minutes. Okay. So fine. So you can see this is called the global bus. If you use the same bus for operating or connecting all these modules, right? But if you do that, then what will happen? See that for each buffers you have some capacitance associated with connected with this line, right? So large number of bus means large bus means obviously due to the length of the bus its capacitance will increase. Due to the large number of drivers, their these buffers, their capacitance will also increase, right? So rather than making this bus like using a single bus or global bus, you can actually segment it into maybe in a two parts. One you can see here, this is a part one and this is that part two. So see here what we have done, we have just segmented this one into two parts, right? And while arranging this module, we have arranged this module such that the interactions between this M1 and M2 and M3 are high, means the means most, okay. The interaction between M1 and M4 are quite less. Similarly, M2 and M5 quite less. M3, M4 are quite less. But the interaction which are connected between with this single line, with the single bus line, is the highest, right? So if we have connected this, then obviously there might be some time when this module 1 also would also like to interact with this module 6, right? So we have to use one also bus, keep some type of this bus interface, right? So using this bus interface, if something is required, then you can also request through it, but that probability is quite less. We have kept this module such that, and arranged this module such that the interaction between this module is the highest. So here you can see that we have reduced the number of blocks associated with a single line. So that way the capacitances associated with has reduced, right? And the number of buffers that this drive has to link, earlier it was a large, now it has become almost the half. So that way again you can reduce the capacitance. So when you reduce the capacitance, so again you can, because the power dissipation is also proportional to that capacitance, right? So reduce capacitance, that means you can reduce the power. Right. So this is the basic concept for how you can use this bus segmentation for connecting different modules and segment it for reducing the power. Okay, then I thought I will do it. Okay, then as you have exam, you told. Fine. So let us stop here today. And I will inform you regarding some time, maybe someday in the evening, when we can discuss about the marks for the test. Huh?